As artists, social media is a powerful tool, but creating content for the platform specifically can be exhausting. I'm Ilana, and this is my business partner, Katie. But today we have a really special guest. Our friend Belinda is coming on to talk about social media and how she uses it to grow her art business. Hi, thank you so much for coming on to talk about social media with us. Will you just do like a quick intro about who you are, the type of work you do? Yeah, that would be perfect.
All right. Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. I am Belinda Kou. I am a lettering artist and illustrator based in Chicago. I create a lot of colorful and playful art, often inspired by food. And I have been working for 2 years freelance full time. I had kids and I decided to leave my agency job for a bit of the flexibility, as well as being able to pursue something more creatively fulfilling for me. And I've been able to work with clients like Adobe, Nespresso, and Coach during that time. And it's been great. Yeah, it's been a very nonlinear journey, but it has been very great.
And didn't you have a career change too? Like totally, didn't you do something totally separate from illustration? So you must be self-taught.
Yeah, pretty much self-taught. I did pursue a graphic design degree, like associate's degree for a little bit, just to get my foot in the door with the programs. But other than that, self-taught. I used to have a science background.
I was going to say science, and I was like, I don't want to mess it up. That's amazing. Well, you are crushing it. Your work is phenomenal and also makes me very hungry, which is normal. You know, I am a sugar addict. So your work always really resonated with me. And then watching you, not just on Instagram, but like your client work, and then also on TikTok. I joined this year and I cannot stop.
It's so addicting.
It's so fun. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about social media because it's often a hurdle for people because our artwork is so much attached to who we are. And so when we share it, it feels vulnerable and it feels like every piece is really precious. So one of the first things I want to talk about is how social media has actually opened the door for you to like why creating content on social media translates into booking jobs. Because for me, my social media often feels disconnected. And so I want to talk about how yours is actually connected and a huge like fuel to what you do.
Yeah, so social media for me has been my main tool for getting clients. I'd say about 80% of my client work comes from social media, and it helps to have a variety of platforms to work with. I know it's like really easy to get burnt out trying to stretch yourself across the platforms, but if you're strategic about it and you repurpose it like crazy, it's pretty helpful to do. And starting with one platform like Instagram and slowly adding on more is kind of the way that I did it. But yeah, it has been a really great tool for me to get clients.
So when you started, did you just start making the work? That's one thing we preach is like, make the work you want to get. So is that how you started, just making work and saying maybe someone will like it? And then it turned into your first client job. So you just leaned in?
So when I first started, I actually started simply to get lettering like into a habit for myself. So it was a very like personal growth kind of pursuit for me to start up my current account, which was 4 years ago. So I was doing a daily lettering exercise because I was always talking about lettering, but never actually doing the lettering. So I realized that having something that was a place where I can just throw my work on, but wasn't like a website where it felt too official, but also had friends who were following me. So I had accountability, was a great way for me to get started with just getting into the habit of sharing work and creating work. And then eventually evolved into more of what I do today with getting clients and
that's amazing.
kind of pursuing it that way.
It does feel like going from Instagram to a website, like the website is more professional, is more, you know, like set in stone, you've put in the time, but it's also really easy to do. So it does seem like a hurdle, but the same goes for Instagram, like sharing your work, pressing publish can be really scary, but just like doing it for fun and having that attitude where you have accountability and you're making it a practice, like your expectation is something for yourself. It's internal instead of like, my expectation is I'm going to have 1 million followers. That would not be the right way to approach it.
Yeah, so that would be a lot of pressure.
So how did you like carve the time to make that a practice? You're a mom, you're busy, you had a job. Like, how do you continue to carve the time to do things that are self-motivated instead of client work? Because a lot of the time we're so busy with client work that we're like, who has time to make content that's just for Instagram? Because
Yeah.
sometimes you can't share client work, or it's not worthy of like putting on your grid because it's a different mission, it's someone else's brand. How do you kind of balance that?
Yeah. So when I think it really helped for me to start out Instagram the way that I did, which was this is a daily practice. It's me building a skill. It's a work in progress. So what I'm posting out of that kind of mentality. And I started Instagram as a way to carve out a creative, like a hole for my creative fulfillment to go into, because
Yeah.
I was doing stuff at my job that I just felt like, it wasn't what I wanted to truly do. So I wanted to be able to draw. And at my job, I was looking at stock images for clients because that was where their budget fell. So, having Instagram to be that place was kind of the driving force behind me creating my work. And nowadays it still is. Like, client work is great. It's definitely a great fit for me, but you still want to have those moments where you have something that doesn't have a creative brief. It's just something for yourself. So that kind of is what keeps me going. And then I actually don't create work that often anymore, just with the pandemic and kids and,
Yeah.
craziness.
Yep.
So I have to be kind of strategic about how I share my content to still stay consistent, but not have to, create a new art piece every time I'm posting.
I love that. Katie and I talk about this all the time. We talk about double dipping, and recently it's evolved into like quadruple dipping. And we always preface it by being like, not the pandemic disgusting kind that no one can ever do again, where you're dipping a chip, but like the repurposing your artwork. So we talk about taking items from your portfolio that were like rejected sketches, revisiting them, or taking an old piece and giving it new life, or trying it in different colorways, or taking something that you did and just like finding a new home for it. So you are like, I feel like the queen of this, because you have both an Instagram and a TikTok, but you also will take one piece and show it in so many ways that it really like takes on a life of its own. So can you talk a little bit about how, like, any tips for doing that, any tips for repurposing, or how you can like pull all the juice out of one piece of content?
Yeah. So my reasoning for doing this started out with I don't have enough time to create new art for every single post. I used to like kind of make time for that. But then, once you add on running your own business and everything and kids, there's just no way to keep that as a sustainable practice. Like, you will definitely burn out after a few days. So now what I'll do is I'll have my art piece, but I will keep in mind that for me, I like to do really detailed work. So it takes me anywhere from 4 to 8 hours to make a single art piece. And if I'm trying something new, it can be up to 20 hours even.
Of course.
Which is way too much work for one post that will be seen by like 10% of your followers and have a shelf life of 48 hours,
Right?
Yeah.
We forget that. We
yeah.
think it's so precious. And then we're like, oh, wait, it's only 48 hours. Like, it will be gone. If you produce, let's say you produce daily or every other day, like it will literally fall to the bottom of your grid.
Yeah.
And people probably won't see it.
Yeah. Your newsfeed is flooded these days by videos and suggested posts by people you don't follow and advertisements. So it's really easy to get lost in that. Which is why I think repurposing your art is a really great way to share that same work over and over again, so that the people who do see your work all the time get a new angle of the story that you're telling with that piece. But then others who don't see your work get a chance to actually see it for the first time. So
I love that. But how do you like take a step back and be like, okay, it's good enough to post? Like, this is the like perfectionism that we have to get over. Like, not every piece has to be perfect. Not every post has to be the best post. Not every post has to go viral, or like some posts need to be value. Some posts need to be viral. Some posts need to just be, hey, I'm showing up. This is an old piece. Cool. Like, you don't have the expectation that it's going to gain you hundreds of followers. Like, do you have any, like, did you ever struggle with that? Or did you just like, because you started the way you did you just like have a clear plan and expectation from the get-go?
Oh no, I've definitely struggled with that. I still do sometimes, like, I think it's just the human being in us. Like, if posts kind of flop and nobody sees your stuff and nobody's liking or commenting, you still feel pretty bad. But I think it's important to also remind yourself that social media is just a tool in your toolbox of what you're doing as an artist to market yourself. And, you know, one post does not define your self-worth as an artist. That art is going to live on social media, but if it's really great art, it's also going to live on your portfolio. And you can use it in other ways to promote yourself. But one thing that helps me with sharing my posts is one, not posting as soon as I finish my art when I'm still very emotionally connected to it,
That's
but
true.
posting it way later when I may have already created another piece and I have more content in the pipeline. So even if that piece flops, I know like, well, I've got another post coming up in 2 days and we'll see how this does. Or, you know, maybe I share one thing and the reaction is a little bit different, but now I know, well, I've got another art piece I can share. And, you know, this is already something that I am more attached to. And the one thing that I posted, I'm already removed from. I don't know if this is like a typical artist thing, but usually like after a couple of days or weeks, I no longer like that piece anymore.
Oh,
Like moving
totally.
on to
No, this
something
is
else.
totally for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
But I
So
think that's like the coolest thing. And that's something we talk about when we talk a lot about building a portfolio for people who are either just starting out or who are starting to get into licensing, is that they think that you need to have like 100 pieces. I have like 500 pieces. The pieces that were like, I label everything 0, it has a number. My pieces from 0 to 100, I look at now and I'm like, uh-oh, those are bad. But
yeah.
that's the thing, is you need to create a practice where you're constantly making new work, because that's how you get stronger. And so those pieces might be right for someone, but I feel more proud of the pieces in the 300s, And so, yeah, I think giving yourself some time to digest what you've created and say, okay, now I can share this. I'm kind of one step removed, I think is really helpful. And I think you use an app. I remembered the name, and now Notion.
Yes.
Does that help
Yes.
you plan your content in advance?
It does. So I still use Notion. I'm kind of mixed on. I'm 80% won over by this app, but the 20% of me, the way I have it set up is it's not synced to a Google Calendar. So sometimes I will miss important like days and holidays I'm planning. I have to like remind myself where it is. But Notion is a great tool to use, or any kind of tool that you have to plot down your content planning. I started out with Google Calendar, like just putting a little event down saying that I'm going to post my art piece on this day. And then 2 weeks later, I will post a behind the scenes of it and talk about, how I did it. And then like another week later, I'll post a reel, a video reel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got you.
So, yeah.
What about posting from TikTok to Instagram? Do you feel like they're separate platforms, so they're separate audiences, or do you sometimes repurpose content from TikTok to Instagram?
Most of the videos that I use on TikTok, I will repost to Instagram at some point. I feel like TikTok's frequency of posting is a lot higher because you're making a mix of like trend videos that don't take too long, and they're just like fun exercises for yourself and like fun to share with other people. And then you've got like other meatier videos that are tutorials and tips and things like that. So I will mainly take all of the videos there and share it at a slower pace on Instagram. And I found out initially, I don't know if it's the same now. I feel like it still is. A lot of people on Instagram are not using TikTok. So I don't feel bad sharing that video again. And even if, even if they are using or following me on both, if I share it at different times, it might be a nice like reminder of like, oh, remember this video?
Yeah, because they're so quick, we often forget that we've even seen it. And also someone might have 1 million followers on TikTok and have like 1,000 on Instagram. And I just think that is so amazing that there are so many people we have yet to discover.
Yeah.
Which is probably why I scroll for hours. But I mean, I just learned so much on TikTok, and Instagram is such a place where I find inspiration. So I think it's really great to understand that there are two different audiences, but also that there is some overlap. And so you can have fun and figure out what works for you. I had a question that I was going to ask that I did not prep you for. You've done a bunch of brand like collaborations using social media.
Yes.
You just like talk a little bit about monetizing a social media account, because it's one thing to use it as a portfolio. And I often struggle with this. Obviously we have two different accounts, but my personal account is quite different than our business account. And I get all these like spammy emails being like, do you want to post about our product? And I'm like, this has literally nothing to do with me or what I talk about. And I think as artists, we often have a hard time like detaching or deciding, I guess, do I want to share my art? And you went in with a clear mission of what you were doing on Instagram, but there's like a fine line, like, do I want to share more of my life and my kids, or do I want to share just art? And I think having that plan like is the game changer, especially for your mental health. But yeah, if you can talk a little bit about like using this as not just a tool to get in front of your dream clients, but also as a tool to monetize and create an income stream, I think that would be so helpful.
Sure. So I did not know that brand collaborations was a thing when I was using Instagram. I was using it mainly to put my work out there. Eventually, once I started thinking about freelance, I saw that, oh, there are actually a lot of potential clients on here who are browsing Instagram for artists to hire them and commission them for some project. So that was what I was using Instagram for until I started getting brand inquiries for collaborations. And you don't even need to have a really large following for that. I think my first brand collaboration, I had maybe 3,000, 4,000 followers.
Wow.
There's, like micro influencing. Sometimes your engagement at that level is way higher than what your engagement is when you've got hundreds of thousands of followers. So brands are also looking at that. But so one way that you can monetize is by doing these social media brand collaborations. And I thought that was a really interesting experience because they are essentially paying you not only to create content for them, but to post it and share about their brand with your audience who would rather hear a review from you than a promotion from that brand. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think there are some nuances to it as an artist that you have to start to understand. One of them is how to use social media in a strategic way, not just like, here's my art world,
Yeah.
like it, please.
Yeah.
But you have to think about, what is, who is my audience? Who am I serving? And how will I communicate this to them in the best way? So caption writing and that kind of stuff is also important, and how you tell the story about that brand.
I love that because like you said, you can just share your art, but when you share a little bit more than your portfolio, when you like put your personality into it, you can really bring a lot of value to a brand. And it doesn't have to, they can see your work and say, oh, we really like this person's content. It would be fun to take things to a different level, like not just have them create a piece that like lives on its own, but to like have that person become a voice for us. And that is, I mean, that's the dream, I think. That is so cool. So I love that. And I know you're working on some things to talk more about that. So we will either like update the link or share that when it comes out. But how, I want to talk about mental health for just a quick second. Do you ever turn off social media, or do you set any boundaries so that you can like take a break, detach, unwind, without checking your phone 100 times? Do you have any hard and fast rules or expectations you set for yourself with it?
Yeah. So one is in your app settings, at least on iPhones, you can set app limits.
Yep.
So I have an app limit for Instagram. I think it is at 2 hours. It used to be one until I realized that I actually waste a lot of time scrolling for like inspiration and stuff and like checking back in on DMs. So I'm like, okay, maybe 2 hours. So I don't feel so guilty every time it shuts me down. So no more than 2 hours a day. Lately, I think I've been spending probably an hour under, just because it's overwhelming sometimes with all these videos that they're showing now. And then also I have like a do not disturb or screen time, like after 10 o'clock, no more browsing. Like I'm not going to be browsing my phone, even TikTok, before I go to bed. Just to be in that like better mental space. Sometimes I will ignore it. So I'm not like perfect at it, but it's a good reminder for you to not do that.
I really fall under that trap, right at bedtime. I'm like, oh, it's been an hour. Okay. But I do have a hard and fast rule. It's not hard and fast. It's not so black and white, but I say no social media on the weekends. And it's like a digital Sabbath. And I feel so much better come Monday. I feel so much more detached. I feel like I'm ready to head into a week where I'm going to be providing content. It just like was the biggest game changer for me, except since I'm new to TikTok, I found myself not going on Instagram or going on TikTok, just for like a couple of minutes. But I also have notifications usually turned off. And if I have them turned on, I notice that like if someone sends me a message, I really want to respond. it's fine. But I do take weekends off as much as I can. And I find that that has been like just such a nice break. Almost like when you work out, I work out on weekdays, I work out every morning. And on weekends, I don't work out. I'll like go for a walk with my family. And just like that, it like lets my muscles recover. It like lets my
Mhm.
social media brain recover.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's one of the best decisions I put into place.
Yeah. So like having those boundaries on like a regular weekly, daily basis is really helpful. I
Yeah, for
do
sure.
social media breaks too, like longer social media breaks. I try to do 2 a year and it's about a month long. And those are
Woo!
really nice.
That's
So
awesome. I love
yeah.
that. And you have to remember, like, your content is still there. People can still find you. People are going to find you word of mouth. Like, we all need that. It's still there. It's just not popping up maybe as frequently, but your followers aren't going to be like, I'm leaving. You stink,
Yeah.
So I love that. Okay. So, last question is just what tips do you have if you were going to leave anyone who is either frustrated with social media or just getting started or just like ready for a refresh? What advice would you give them?
So I would say, let me see. I think I actually wrote some of this down
Oh,
here.
good. I know it's a very open-ended question. So any tip you have that you've found to like really stick with you, I think is good.
I mean, I think one thing is know what your goal is when you're using social media. It's so easy to forget and get lost in the game of trying to play the algorithm and do all the newest trends and tricks and everything. But if you think about the fact that you're probably an artist, you're using social media to share your work and also hopefully get hired for that work that you're sharing, whether it's a brand collaboration or it is client hiring you to, draw something for them. You want to be able to use social media in that way. So that kind of helps to remove you from that emotional attachment of sharing your art online. I feel like it gives you a little bit more freedom to know I am sharing this art for the purpose of hopefully getting hired by a client on social media. This art is also going to live somewhere else. So even if that post tanks, perhaps it is also going to be seen by people of a different audience on TikTok, on Pinterest. It's going to be on my website. There are many different avenues that I have created to get eyes on this work. And it's not all my eggs in one basket on Instagram.
Yeah.
So that helps. And I think also if when new things like algorithm changes come up and you are reassessing why you are sharing, it helps to remember that as well. So for example, I am sharing a lot of educational content because I really want to help people who were where I was 3 to 4 years ago to kind of, get a step ahead based on what I've been learning. So even if my posts aren't being seen as much by people before, like maybe my numbers look lower, I'm still looking for that engagement of people who are saying like, wow, this really changed my workflow. Thank you so much. That kind of stuff. So those are the rewards I'm looking for and not just, vanity metrics.
I feel like I need a bell to ding, like, yes, yes, because that's the thing. Even if you can just help one person, and if someone doesn't agree with you, that's okay. Someone else will. And it's so hard to not get caught up. And I think having that game plan and having that intention of why you're showing up, if you're showing up to gain clients, then if you post something that's unrelated and it doesn't do well, like that's why, is because that's not why you're here. And you can just do that little gut check with yourself. Is this helping my goal? Is this taking a step in the right direction? And also, am I enjoying this? If you
Yeah,
don't like posting reels and you don't like dancing and you don't like doing the trends, then just
don't do
don't do
it.
it because it doesn't feel good. And so I think that's a really great thing to remember, is to like set up your intention, set up your expectations, and figure out why you're here, why you're showing up. And then to have fun, because the best part about this community is exactly that. The community is meeting these other people and enjoying their work from afar. And that's why we love it.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I'm thinking about in terms of wanting to grow your social media is it is more important to be consistent than to be perfect with what you are sharing. So consistency is key, even if it's, like a daily thing that you want to do where you're just sharing a daily practice exercise and it's not portfolio type stuff. That's still better than coming onto social media once every 2 months to post once and then ghost and leave. So yeah, consistency is
Whoops.
key.
I do that. I'm like, I'm going to post every day. And I'm like, who has time to create every day? But some people do. And that's the thing, is set goals that are reasonable. So if you can show
Yeah.
up once a week, then show up once a week, every week. If you can show up every day, great, good for you. That's awesome too. But consistency I've found is like the key to life,
Yeah.
you know,
And you should
especially with
set your own
kids.
pace. Totally.
Yes,
Because
set
I
your own
know
pace.
like articles will tell you, oh, you need to post 2 reels a week plus 3 static posts or whatever to, get seen by people. I would just ignore all of that and think, what is my pace that works well for me on top of everything else I'm doing, full-time job, running a side business, whatever. There's a lot of other responsibilities than just social media. So if your posting cadence is just once a week, I think that's fine. If it's once every like twice a month, I think that's fine too. And I think also that's where the repurposing content can really be helpful for you, because I did a little bit of math. I think I wrote it
I
down
love it.
because
love
I
it.
can't math very well, so I had to write it down.
I love it. I
But
love
like,
it.
say a piece takes you 5 hours to create and you post that one time, and each piece that each post that you're making is one original piece. So for you to post 4 times in a month, you have to already put in 20 hours.
Whew.
But if you repurpose that one piece into 3 other pieces, so it's your original art, it's your mock-up, which is you putting it into a Photoshop file.
Right.
It is a behind the scenes snippet, maybe like even just taking a snapshot of your work in progress. And it can also be a lesson learned or an educational tip. That content will take you much less time to create than a new piece of art. It can probably take you about 3 hours to create 3 pieces. So for you to do 4 posts, it's 8 hours as opposed to 20 hours.
Yeah.
So
I love that. That
very
is
time saving.
Exactly. And if there's any, especially now we all wear so many hats, like if there's any hacks you can use to save time and still show up, I think those are like little snippets of gold. I love it.
Yeah.
So you also sound so level-headed with you have such a clear intention, and I love that. And I think that shows through in your work too. It's always really consistent. You have a clear voice, and it's also so much fun to look at all these delicious, literally like visually delicious, but also like I want to eat them. So I really appreciate all the time and all the tips that you've shared. Thank you so much for coming on. Do you want to do just like a quick where everyone can find you?
Oh, sure. You can find me at Belinda Kou everywhere. I made it easy to just make my username the same. I'm primarily on Instagram and TikTok. And if you go to my website, belindasco.com, that's where you can sign up for my newsletter. I do have a freelance checklist that's free. And then I'm working on a content repurposing cheat sheet. So
Yay!
you should sign up so you can get that from me.
Thank you so much to Belinda for coming on and sharing those tips with us. So much great advice, and her work is incredible. I can't wait to see what she creates next. If you found this video helpful, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and tell us what you want to hear from us next. We're artists who mean business, and we're in this with you. See you next week.